I'd like to invite the professors up here so we can start our question and answer session. And Father Grzegorz is also here, and he will be part of the conversation as well. Thank you.
So we invite you to put your questions in Polish or in English, please.
To może dla wygody zadam pytanie po polsku. My question is to Professor Burgos, so 1 minute, okay? Panie profesorze, bardzo dziękuję za przedstawienie nam pana projektu. Przed południem zobaczyliśmy wystarczająco dużo dowodów na to, że przynajmniej w połowie swojej filozoficznej kariery Wojtyła klasyfikuje się jako tomista. Ponadto pisze artykuł o personalizmie tomistycznym, co jest nie tak z personalizmem tomistycznym, że potrzebujemy rozwijać nowy typ personalizmu, który jest jakimś salomonowym wyrokiem pomiędzy tomizmem, do którego Wojtyła się przyznaje, stosuje klasyczne kategorie, stosuje klasyczne definicje osoby. I jestem przekonany, że w wykładach lubelskich możemy znaleźć, jeśli nie wprost, to przynajmniej kontekstowo odwołanie do 4 przyczyn. Z jednej strony mówi pan profesor o tym, że podejście Wojtyły jest ontologiczne, nie metafizyczne. Za chwilę jednak pan profesor wskazuje, że Wojtyła stosuje podejście metafizyczne, tworząc nowe kategorie. Przepraszam, ale nie do końca rozumiem, o którym Wojtyle mówimy, którą część nauczania Wojtyły mamy na myśli i tak naprawdę w którą stronę ma to zmierzać, skoro Wojtyła dość jasno nakreślił kierunek, w którym chciałby, aby ten jego personalizm zdążał.
Well, I think this is a topic. This is clear that we don't have the same view, but I don't think that, Wojtyła has a powerful evolution. So when we talk about Wojtyła, we have to precise in which period we are talking about. At the beginning, he was clearly a Thomist, but after his encounter with Seller, he started to develop another kind of thinking. And we can find this new kind of thinking in, first of all, in Love and Responsibility, which is not anymore a Thomist book. And we can find clearly with any kind of evidence in Person and Action, or even in his ethics writings. So to me, it's evident that Wojtyła is not a Thomist in his mature way of thinking, and he didn't say so in Personal Action, which is his main reference. So that to me, it's very clear. This is very clear, as it seems that for you is not, but it is the difference in. So for me, it's a very clear thinking. And if we, for example, make an account of the main concepts in which Person and Action is built, I really don't find Thomistic concepts to explain that. To explain one, for example, Wojtyła uses the Aristotelian teleology, that is the Thomistic teleology, but he transforms the Aristotelian teleology in the self-teleology, which is a concept that is clearly developed in his essays, is developed in the Person and Action, and is developed after that. So Wojtyła doesn't use the teleology. What he uses is self-teleology. Why? Because he thinks that the person, when the person acts, is looking something outside him, but at the same time, is looking something inside him. In this sense, he's using Kantian categories. Is that the subject is an end in itself. That would be only an example. No? I can remember when he talks about self-determination. Can we find self-determination in Thomism? I don't have anything against Thomas Aquinas. He was a great and brilliant thinker, but I think that clearly Thomas Wojtyła goes beyond Thomas, and this is good in the same way that Thomas went beyond the other people who were behind him. No? I don't know if this answer, probably you are not agree, you don't agree with that, but this is my opinion. Also with the causes. What Wojtyła he uses is the cause. The notion of cause he uses, but he doesn't use at all the material cause, the formal cause. You don't find that in personal action. Well,
Maybe it's just the clash of interpretations, wow. But definitely, if it's quite fruitful in the sense that we can discuss and the discussion is going on. Okay, if I can, just to put a question to Professor Aguas. Well, actually, you mentioned quite important part of Wojtylian philosophy, just very much associated with his personalist ethics, the concept of virtue. Let me delve a little bit into the theory of virtue. As you know, traditionally, the structure of virtue is understood in this way that before we start forming a good attitude, we should acquire a proper grasp of the good, underlying good. So without that cognitive element, of course, we cannot form properly a virtue as such. So, but in the philosophy of Karol Wojtyła, we have some strange, or at least not easy to solve problem, namely that he uses both the concept of value and the concept of good. So if we talk about virtues in the ethics of Karol Wojtyła, as elements which must be in a sense animated by proper grasp of the good, what about values? Namely, can we say the same, namely that values underpin virtues? And finally, I'm fully aware that it comes to the problem, namely the relationship between the good and the value. But what about the value itself? Can we say that values as such, experienced, personally, animate, underpin our virtues? Is that enough or not? What do you think?
Thank you very much, Father, for that question. That's a very important question. First, let me say that in his analysis of virtue, Wojtyła first highlights the role of reason. And the function of reason is to make us determine what is the truly good. So we know that good is the object of the will, truth is the object of reason. But he said there should be the truthfulness of the good. And what determines the truthfulness of the good is reason. That the good must truly be good. Now, when it comes to value, of course, value is good. But we have to determine really if the value is truly good. Because there's a difference between knowing the value and experiencing the value. According to Wojtyła, we can experience the value based on our emotion. Right? For example, I may be in love with a person, and Wojtyła talks about the emotionalization of consciousness. So since I am overcome by my emotion, this person may appear to me to be good, and that's something that has a value. But I have to use my reason to first determine if that object of my emotion is truly a good person. And that's where reason comes in. Second, I have to determine if my feelings are genuine. Because, well, I may just be overly overcome by my emotion. So that I think my emotions are genuine or real, but on ultimate analysis, that emotion, and we know the nature of emotion, they can be transitory. So my feelings may not be a genuine feeling. So very important is the role of reason for Wojtyła. And I think that's coming from St. Thomas, of course. And just maybe my view about if, of course, this is no longer part of the question, Father, but I want to address this question about if Wojtyła is a Thomist. I think through and through, even during his papacy, he was still a Thomist. If we read, for example, Fides et Ratio, and he traced the history of philosophy, of course, he said about reason and will, two wings, right? Faith and reason, two wings. I think his articulation of the development of philosophy or the relation between reason and faith is informed but by a profound understanding of Thomism. And yeah, I think those are my thoughts on that point.
So just to complete this, I know that's a very complex issue. It's a bit provoking. I should ask him about how he would approach this issue then to solve it once for good. I'm fully aware of that. But so you would claim that the quite essential reason is some quite essential role is played by reason. Yeah. So even if we want to consider values as foundations of virtues, reason is of course indispensable. Yeah. So we experience values, but we also must invest our reason, yeah? And only then, yeah, just work for respective virtues, yeah? So, okay, so, yeah.
Well, so as I highlighted in my paper presentation, Wojtyła talks about the full integration of the person. And when he talks of the integration of the person, that involves, of course, the emotion, the desires, the appetites. And then, of course, you have reason and will. And when we develop the virtue, Wojtyła says, to develop the virtue does not mean that we have to suppress the appetites or the values. A mature person, a virtuous person, can harmonize his emotions, his desires, with his reason and with his will. For example, of course, as human beings, he's talking about the emotional dynamism of person. Of course, as human beings, we feel sexually attracted to, say, the opposite sex. By being virtuous doesn't mean that I will not feel anymore those attractions, those sexual attractions. But if we fully integrate our person, if we develop the virtue, for example, of chastity, then I can direct my sexual appetites to the right person, to my wife. So it's not to diminish or it's not to, set aside the appetites, but to fully integrate that appetite. So he talks of a transformed spontaneity. And then that becomes, so that's the virtue of chastity. So a chaste person, for example, let's talk about the priest. The chaste or the virtuous priest does not mean that he does not feel anymore the appetites. But because he has developed this virtue of chastity, he has offered himself to the Lord, then he can channel all these energies to the right good.
Well, I want to add to this interesting discussion that in my way, I think that the point of virtue and good and value in personal action maybe is one of the points that is not completely solved. But I think that the idea is what he says is that value is the subjective value, so to say, of the good. So I say that good is something objective. Things are good for us or not good for us, depending on our structure as a person. But of all the goods that we can find, there are some that are important for us and others are not important. So the value, what shows us is what inside all the among all the woods is what is important for us. For example, I say that to help to some ONG is something good in general, no? But it's good for me, or is valuable for me, or not. I think that this is the explanation that he is of difference between value and good on personal acts. And I think that I will want to add very shortly is that we cannot talk of Fides Arratxo as the thinking of Karol Wojtyła. I think that is an important position. Fides Arratxo is a writing made by the Pope John Paul II, but this was a magisterial document written for many different people, revised for many different people. So if we want to be specific, if we want to talk about the philosophy of Karol Wojtyła, we will have to base on the right philosophical writings of Wojtyła, in my opinion.
So, Juan, I'd like to press you more. If you started this topic, it's a very difficult topic, sorry, but if you started that...
Ale ponieważ pan zaczął, no to czuję się sprowokowany. Wiemy, że z lektury osoby i czynu wynika, że Wojtyła zamiennie korzysta z koncepcji dobra i wartości. Korzysta z tej koncepcji wymiennie. Czasami się gubimy co do tego, co on rozumie przez każdy z tych elementów. Ale na przykład, kiedy mamy to podstawowe podejście, a więc filozofia dobra, dotyczy dobra istniejącego niezależnie od osób ludzkich, istniejącego niezależnie od nas. Więc jeżeli nie mamy świadomości pewnych dóbr, to one i tak istnieją. To jest podstawowa wiedza. Ale jeżeli chodzi o wartości, wartości są nam dane poprzez intuicję. Więc mamy taką intuicyjną hierarchię, którą znamy. A więc w jaki sposób pogodzić te dwa podejścia? W jaki sposób powiedzieć, że wartości to dobra, dobro to wartości. To nie jest łatwe przejście od jednego do drugiego. Oczywiście nie mogę tutaj ostatecznie rozwiązać tego problemu na podstawie tekstów Karola Wojtyły. Przynajmniej ja nie mam takiej wiedzy. Jeżeli pan ma, to proszę o informację. Myślę, że to jest jeden z problemów jego etyki, że ona nie jest całkowicie rozwinięta, więc nie mamy jasnego rozumienia co do tego, jak on rozumie dobro, ponieważ na przykład w osobie i czynu nie mamy dobro antropologiczne, a więc myślę, że Karol Wojtyła nie opracował konkretnej koncepcji, jeżeli chodzi o dobro, i to jest jeden z problemów. A zatem wydaje mi się, że w osobie i czynie w tym tekście Wojtyła nie tłumaczy, skąd wiemy, że coś stanowi wartość, przynajmniej tak mi się wydaje. Więc nie ma tam takiej jasności u Wojtyły co do tego.
I arrive to this conclusion that good is something that is good for the person, but in a general way. So to say, if I am a person, it's good to help others, no? But there will be some kind of helping others that will say something to me. It will motivate me to do that. This is the conclusion at what I arrive, but this is not clear for me, very clear in personal action. And it is not clear in other ethical works because the ethical works are very dispersed. Well, this is like a...
Ja może zadam po polsku pytanie. Więc tak, personalizm Jacques'a Maritaina jest określany przez niego samego i przez innych jako integralny personalizm. Więc chciałabym zapytać, jaka jest różnica w rozumieniu czy w znaczeniu przymiotnika integral w tym integralnym personalizmie Maritaina i w tym integralnym personalizmie Wojtyły wedle pana profesora Burgosa.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Well, the point is that what Maritain talked about was integral humanism. Jacques Maritain didn't use the word integral personalism, but integral humanism. He has this very, very good book, The Integral Humanism. So there is a difference here, no? But from a theoretical point of view, the point will be that Maritain always talk of himself as a Thomist, and there is this discussion here, but I think there is difference between the anthropology of Karol Wojtyła and the anthropology of Jacques Maritain. But the idea is that the terms are different, so there is is not the same term. And the anthropology of Karol Wojtyła is, in my view, is very different on the anthropology of Jacques Maritain, which is that is not his most powerful creation. Because for me, the anthropology of Jacques Maritain is a bit dualistic. He has many other very good things, but not his anthropology, in my opinion.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for your questions today for this third session. We'll take about a 10-minute coffee break, I think, because we are running a little bit behind schedule. And then we'll come back for Dr. Keith Hood's talk to start us off in the last fourth session. Thank you very much for all our presenters today.